out-of-pocket cost, regardless of your age. All you need is Medicare or private insurance to be potentially eligible. Call the Diabetes Solution Center right now for details. Just takes a couple of minutes. Our friendly, knowledgeable agents will give you free, no-obligation information, handle all the insurance paperwork, and make sure your supplies are delivered directly to your door for free.
Call U.S. Medical Supply 24 hours a day. 800-597-9323. 800-597-9323. 800-597-9323. Call right now. 800-597-9323.
Let's be honest. Wheelchairs are heavy, bulky, and ugly. If you carry a wheelchair in your car to take care of a loved one, you know how hard it is getting that clunky, old-style wheelchair in and out of your car. Introducing the Feather Chair Wheelchair. At 13 pounds, it's the world's lightest wheelchair. It folds in seconds and fits neatly in your trunk, backseat, or closet, so you can take it everywhere. And it's only available right here. Order yours today and get a free wheelchair case, a $50 value, yours free. The Feather Chair. The world's lightest wheelchair is just $4.99 with easy payments as low as $16 a month. Sorry, no Medicare or insurance accepted. So call right now to order yours.
800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. That's 800-823-5826.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. If you're trying to quit drinking or doing too many drugs, listen to me. You don't know me and we'll never meet. I had a problem like you once. I drank and used to party a little too much till it got out of control and almost ruined my life. I realized I needed help to fix my problem before it totally destroyed me. If you've tried to fix your drinking and drug problem and you know you can't do it alone, you need to call the National Treatment Advisors. They'll immerse you into a 30-day program to replace your old habits with new habits and totally change your life. And if you have PPO private health insurance, the entire program may be covered. Fix your problem right now before it gets any worse. Get clean. Call now and learn more. 877-247-1581. 877-247-1581. 877-247-1581. Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
You're listening to Joco Community Radio.
Nowhere but Texas, that's where I'll be. Get home's the answer to all my dreams. I know one thing, God calls me. Nowhere but Texas is where I'll be.
That's what I was named after. You were looking at my cup.
Oh, it's a great mug.
Welcome to another edition of the County Pulse here on Joco Community Radio. Normally at the Realm is Mayor Chris Fletcher, but he's on vacation or something.
Well, yeah, I gave him a hard time earlier and said, it sounds like you're on vacation. He's actually doing a workshop and he's actually working for the taxpayers of Burleson.
That's what they call it. Workshops, blah. It's at a great resort. No, I'm just kidding. So in his seat, which I think you're going to be in this seat many times over until you say I don't want to come on anymore, which I don't know why you would do that. But Mayor Scott Cain, who is the mayor of Cleburne, Texas. So thanks for saying yes to Chris Fletcher
Well,
and saying,
thanks.
yeah, I'm gonna step in.
Yeah, and thanks, Tiffany, for having me on Joco this morning. We got so many things going on in the county and the city. There's just so many things to talk about. So I'm really looking forward to it.
We'll lead the way because you've got exciting news for the city of Cleburne, which you hired a new city manager in January. He was going to be here today, but things happen.
Yeah, so we went through a new city manager hire over the last 6 months, and I'm really excited. Michael Marrero he comes from Odessa, long time with Odessa, and we're really fortunate. What was amazing when word got out that we were hiring him, I had former employees and people from Odessa call me and said, "Great hire, you're going to love him." And so he's trying to get his feet on the ground. He's been in a lot of staff meetings, trying to see where we are. But one of the things I'm really excited about with Michael is he told me, he said he really wants to get engaged in the community. He wants to be very involved in the community. So we're very excited about the opportunity of having him. He knows how to lead through growth and to manage a lot of the things that we have coming down the pike. So it's really great to have him as part of our team.
I'm excited to meet him. I'm sure you'll get him to the table at some point. I mean, he's off managing a city.
He is, and he's drinking from a fire hydrant, proverbially and figuratively and literally at some point. But yeah, he's been on the job for just a couple of weeks, and he and I've already had long-term conversations about where we're going as a community and how that fits in, how we prepare for growth. And I talked to him about some of the things that I've challenged Cleburne with, and that's to become the city by which others measure success. And so I also told Michael that one of the things that I always tell folks is I get my marching orders from the Chamber of Commerce, from the business community, and I tell our staff that's important. And I don't know if I shared this with you, but every city meeting I have with city staff I always end it the same way. And our former city manager used to tell me, "Oh, don't tell that story," but I always ask them a couple of questions. I say, "Okay, meeting's over. Who do you work for?" "City of Cleburne." "And what's the city of Cleburne?" "It's the government." "And what's the government?" "It's the problem." I said, "All right."
I love that.
Yeah. So,
I love it.
And I always tell them, hey, we're kind of joking, but we always want to remember things that start out, sound really good as a government program, and you address something tend to take a life of its own. So we want to always be lean and mean. And Michael shares a lot of that philosophy and about making certain that we represent the community. So we're really excited to have him. And, we've got a lot of growth coming our way. We have over 10,000 houses that are in the city limits that are at various stages of growth and development. So and that's nothing new for Johnson County. Alvarado is now the fastest growing city in Johnson County.
Wow.
Godly continues to grow and explode. And of course, here in Burleson, lots of growth coming. And so, it's a good time for Johnson County with all the coming growth.
That's big news to hear that Alvarado is now the fastest growing.
It's amazing. And I think there's a lot of things going on. The access to I-35, 380 is going to be coming through. And so we know that our friends in Alvarado are catching a lot of growth. Even Venus is seeing some growth and a lot of housing.
And Venus is going to get an extension from 67 to the Chisholm Trail. Is that right? Or
well, yeah, the 380 exchange and 67 is coming that way. I know that TxDOT has had conversations about a potential 67 bypass at Alvarado, but that's long term. But it's really important to know there used to be a south loop or southeast loop around the DFW area. That's been totally scrapped, and 67 is really the south loop corridor. So I think you're going to see over the next decade or so investments on the 67 corridor. There's lights popping up everywhere. It's almost like 174 and Wilshire here in Burleson. It used to be, I think last time I shared the story about actually going from Cleburne to Burleson without having to stop once.
Right.
We're seeing that on 67 in that corridor as well.
I'm noticing it because I take 67 up into Dallas quite often, and I'm hitting. You don't hit the lights. Really until you hit I guess that's Venus when you start to hit them. And
Yeah.
I really didn't understand like where, because I didn't grow up here, what I was like, oh, this is where Venus is. I've been through here a bunch. I didn't even realize it. Okay. But 67 is, I mean, it's one of those places like where you get on it. You got to see what's changing. Because what I've liked watching over the past 4 years, I'm like, oh, there's another new business. Oh, there's a whole nother business park here. Oh, this is happening here. I mean, the growth is coming and it's not going to stop.
Yeah, it's amazing. A lot of folks in the county think of the growth coming from the Chisholm Trail Parkway, and that is a big part of what's going on. But when you get to the east and Alvarado and Venus, 380, 67 Dallas, we're getting hit from all directions with the growth that's coming this way. I remember when 67 was 2 lane all the way through Johnson County, almost towards Dallas. And now, the lights and the growth that you're seeing, we're all hit with that. So, yeah, we're getting hit on all fronts.
When my husband and I we'll go to Florida quite often, we'll drive or over to Louisiana. And when we would come back, traveling up 20, it would typically try and get us to turn off onto 67. And we're like, no, we don't want to go on 67. There's a lot of potholes and, it's just blah, blah, blah. And then you come to realize, wait a minute, that is now my best route to
Well,
get home to Burleson or anywhere, because it is a little less traveled. I mean, not so much up in the Dallas area, but it's still, the traffic's moving over there. Like it's moving, like it's in motion. You're not
yeah,
stuck
well,
on 35.
it is, but I tell you one positive thing for your listeners is if you're going down the 67 corridor, you had to be very careful in Venus in particular. The speed limit drops to 50 and a lot of speed traps between Cain and Venus. But with all the lights and the additional traffic, you're not able to pick up a lot of speed until you get east of Venus, and then you hit 70 when you get towards Midlothian.
Yeah, it's
So
not too bad.
it's a different game.
It's really not bad.
No,
It's not bad. And
It's
you can,
not.
there's so many different cutoffs that way. So what is Cleburne doing? Well, first of all, I wanted to champion something with you, and that is the way that the Cleburne Chamber of Commerce and the city of Cleburne work so hand in hand together with each other. I think it's a really great example. I mean, I see it in Fort Worth too. I think Burleson's creeping that direction, but it's really something that you guys do really well together, is work with the business community and keep them in mind when you're also looking at your citizens. So how did that relationship, was this in place before you became mayor?
Yeah, so we've always had a really close relationship with the chamber, the city, and even the school district. And even before I became mayor in 2012, Kathy Marshall was the chamber president. And when I served on the chamber board of directors, I was on the committee that actually promoted her to president of the chamber. And Kathy was a force to be reckoned with. We lost her to cancer a few years ago, but we had a very, very close relationship. And it's kind of a philosophy that the business community leads the community. They provide economic growth, jobs, and the city should be providing the basic services. So Kathy and I work together. For example, before the Chisholm Trail came on board, I wanted to go out and promote the community to get businesses to come here, restaurants, national chains, and different things. And Kathy and my wife and a couple others went out to Vegas to a national conference where there was about 35,000 people. And Kathy would go get things set up in meetings, and she'd ping pong me from one to the other and just keep up with it. But we've always tried to work very closely because that's what our community really needs, and that's really the way to do that. We're really working now. Our chamber's doing a great job of trying to get our community to work together on calendaring, and Fletcher talked a little bit about this even countywide. We want to make certain that with his website and what's going on with JOCO, that we get the word out on events and things to promote our different communities and to keep our tax dollars here in the county. And so, the chamber's just been really instrumental in Cleburne. And we want to continue that, but it's all about building those relationships and continuing those forward.
So what does that relationship look? I know we've kind of we've kind of jumped around here really quick, right? Because that kind of happens when you're on the radio. But because there's so much going on in Johnson County, and what's happening in Cleburne, and what's happening in Venus, and what's happening in Burleson, it all affects each other. And what you and Mayor Chris Fletcher and Scott Kimball, and I mean Mayor Kimball, and everybody seems to be really coming together to go, okay, listen, we got to help each other because this is coming fast and hard. And school districts have been a big part of the conversation, of course, and we're going to get to that, just to kind of talk about your opinion, get your feedback on some stuff that's happening in other areas of Johnson County, and get a pulse on what's happening or may, you know, come to fruition in the Cleburne ISD. But in general, a lot of things change and are affected by what's happening on the state level and what's happening with funding and budgeting. What can you what do you want to focus on with that part of
Yeah.
what's good and bad for our local cities?
So, we live in the greatest state in the United States, and we live in the greatest county in the greatest state. Uh, but there's a reason for that. Texas has had such a strong economy. We've been open for business for a number of years, and we really are leaders globally on the economy. But that's not something that we can take for granted. And the last several sessions, I've had to go down to Austin and testify several times and try to work with our state leadership and talk about things like preserving local control. I think it was Thomas Jefferson who said, government closest to the people serves the people best. And we've seen a little bit of erosion of local control and the ability to kind of maintain things at a local level. And that's causing concern. But what really concerns me at the state level is I don't hear a lot of politicians in Austin talking about fiscal responsibility and cutting expenses. Quite frankly, the last time we really saw anything down in Austin about cutting the budget and cutting state spending was when Arlene Wolgemuth was our representative and what was known as the Memorial Day Massacre. And to come out of that, she consolidated and killed a lot of bureaucracy. And, quite frankly, the state government needs to go on a diet. They need to lose some weight. Over the last decade and a half, they've been balancing the budget in a lot of ways on the local taxpayer by pushing school M&O down at the local level. If you look at the state budget, how much percentage of the M&O that they carried 15 years ago compared to today, it's no wonder that we have property owners that are being taxed out of their homes and the system's broke. The system didn't used to be broke,
Right.
but it's going to require the state that has all the power. There's an old saying, the state giveth and the state taketh away.
Right.
All of our local control that Mayor Fletcher and I and Mayor Kimball and all of our communities to be able to say what goes on in our community is given to us, that power and authority by the state. And they've been taking it away over the last few sessions. And we've got to kind of get back to that local control. Texas is too big for a one-size-fits-all approach. I've had this conversation with the governor as well as some others, and I told him, I said, you can't have one size fits all in Texas. If you do, you're setting up an economy like New Mexico, and they're failing miserably, and they have a one size fits all approach. So we need our cities competing with one another, but we need our state legislature to get back to focusing on cutting the budget instead of worrying about a surplus. Two sessions ago, I was down in Austin, and I suggested to the speaker at the time that he take the rainy day budget or the rainy day fund, cap it. We've got billions of dollars in the rainy day fund. Move that line item over to pay for school M&O and and here's the key, give a dollar for dollar credit back to the local property taxpayer. Move it back to the state budget. We don't need any more funding and more government programs at the state level. We need to really start curtailing that. I don't hear a lot of that. And in our House race, there's a lot going on in District 58 in the House race. And I think every one of our listeners, myself included, get a dozen flyers a day. And most of them say, I'm more conservative. Well, I'm more conservative. I'm more conservative. Well, where are we about talking about cutting the budget
Right.
and being fiscally conservative? I don't really care about sound bites and the personal attacks. I want to know, are you going to get it done? Are you going to rein government in? Because it's getting out of control, even at the state level.
This our congressional district 2025 congressional race, there's Roger Williams, who's the incumbent, has two challengers, Matthew Lucci, and the other is Colonel Vince Crabb. And I'm not going to say where I'm voting or any of that, but what I liked about Colonel Crabb the first time his name was introduced to me, and I told him this, is I went to his website and I said, nowhere on his website does it say conservative. And I said, that's refreshing. I mean, why push something, show me what you're going to do or what you're going to change and what your plan is, instead of trying to, use words to war against your opponent. And so I really appreciated that about him.
Well, I mean,
and we need more of that.
Yeah, you think about it, when I ran for the state house in 2003, I was told point blank, don't go negative, don't engage in attacks, tell us what you're about, and let's have an exchange of ideas. But with social media and from the federal level on down, politics has become a blood sport where you just attack and you use sound bites. And we've gotten away from our roots, I think, and that is, focusing on exchange of ideas and attacking issues, not attacking people. And quite frankly,
Say that again. Say that again.
Attack the issues, not the people. And,
Yes.
We've gotten into this, well, I'm more American than you. Quite frankly, we're all Americans, and we need to start working from the position of what we have in common as opposed to what we have apart, and build on that and exchange ideas. Iron sharpens iron, man sharpens man. That's a biblical concept that works in politics too. That means the exchange of ideas is a good thing. But we've got to get away from this. And I tell you, I'm hearing a lot of people throughout the state that are sick and tired of branded politics as usual. They want to see results, and they want to see people talk about what they're for. But I believe this, I think Ronald Reagan in 1980, he really captured the imagination of America at a time when things were really bad. We really did in 78, 79 think our best days are behind us. And he gave one speech that said, it's morning in America. And he ignited that excitement. When I talk to young people today, I'm more excited about America's future and Texas's future than I've ever been, because we haven't hit rock bottom yet, but we're getting pretty close.
Right.
But we still have our best days ahead of us, but we've got to get back to those basics.
They have to. I when you talk about property taxes, it always makes me think about every time, I buy a sweater at the store and I pay sales tax for that sweater. Well, I don't have to keep paying tax for it over and over and over again for something that I owe. And that's what's happening to us with our homes and with our property. We're having to keep paying for something it's like, oh, I can't wait till my house is paid off. Oh, but those damn property taxes are still looming. And there's got to be another way to say, except that the government wants to be able to take something from you if you don't pay your portion. And that's the thing. If you say, okay, well, we're not going to put it as a property tax, but what's going to happen if you don't pay your taxes? You're going to throw all those people in jail?
Well,
really?
Let's call it what it is. Do we really own our houses anymore?
No.
Our properties? We rent from the government.
Yeah.
I pay more in property taxes on my house and my law office than I pay on the mortgage payment.
Right.
That's fundamentally broken.
Yeah.
And the problem is we've got politicians in Austin that have known this for years, and they have created the problem by shifting school M&O down to the local level and balancing the budget, then patting themselves on the back, and then attacking local leaders and saying that we're the problem, that we're running up the taxes on that. But we got to come up with a new system, and it's going to require hard work, and it's not something that you can have a quick sound bite, and it's not an easy solution. But part of the equation has got to be they've got to cut their budget at the state level. If we're going to do this, they're going to have to get it off of the local property taxpayer. They're going to have to come up with a new consumption-based, or a blended approach. But they're going to have to do something. They're going to have to do it pretty quick. I've got elderly people in my community here in Burleson that are getting taxed out of their homes. I've got both of my kids now are homeowners, and they almost could not afford to get into a house because of the property tax.
So this is I mean, this is more of a personal question, right? It's not a question to a mayor because you're a taxpayer, just like me. And so, I mean, if an elderly person no longer has children in the school district, should they be paying for those school taxes? I mean,
Yeah.
it's really, I mean, I think it's a very valid question. I don't think that they should have to pay them.
It is a question that needs to be answered. And quite frankly, in our district right now, a big debate that is getting washed up in the sound bites is the issue of the voucher program. And it's being whitewashed. I feel the governor's whitewashing this, and he's calling the voucher program school choice. Well,
It's not school choice.
those are two different
Yeah.
issues. Right now, I think all of our candidates support school choice and a parent's right to choose. But on the voucher program, there's two issues that I have with that. One, that's a multi-billion-dollar government created program that is going to be pushed back on the property taxpayers eventually, and we're going to eat away the gains that we made this last session.
But they would argue it's coming from the rainy day fund.
Well,
it's a rainy day fund. And
till
what,
it's gone.
and what happens when we need
That's
that
right.
rainy day fund?
And that rainy day fund has been used for economic growth, to bring new businesses in. The answer is never to create a government program and then use funds that have a limited capacity. I had this in Cleburne when I took over. A previous administration, two administrations before me, had lowered our property tax, our tax rate, which sounded really good, but he supplemented it with oil and gas money. Well, what happened in 2012, 13, and 14, the gas money played out, and we no longer had the money to fix potholes, fix the roads. We had gotten down to where we were only spending a couple of $100,000 a year when we needed $5 million a year to maintain our roads. And so, you've got to look at long-term viability on programs. If you're going to create a new program, you got to figure out how to finance it without raising taxes. And so it's kind of a shell game that Austin is playing with that. By saying, well, it's going to come from the rainy day funds. I think Texans are smart enough to figure that out, because I'm seeing on social media where people are saying, well, what happens when that runs out? Then you got to come back to the taxpayers. But we gotta have some responsibility down in Austin. They need to roll up their sleeves and they need to get to work on it. But it's not an easy answer. It's going to require a lot of hard work.
And, and just, you have to educate yourself on all the candidates. If the governor is pushing someone more on a local level, I mean, who's very, 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 very much pushing this voucher bill, I just do your research. I mean, you really have to do your research on who are they going to go up to Austin and fight for. They're going to fight for the taxpayer, for the people, or they're going to fight for what Austin wants, what they want for the state. And again, that's where that whole money shifting that you're talking about, playing that game, moving it all around, who's going to really get it?
Well, and Texas is a big state. We have a lot of issues, and to pick this one issue on it, and to on the voucher issue, and then it comes into question $6.2 million coming from Pennsylvania. To the guy that's donated the money to Pennsylvania, I got one response to him: don't mess with Texas.
See, to me, it's not so much that this guy in Pennsylvania is trying to mess with Texas. Somebody in Texas went to him for money.
Yeah. Well, it's always about the money.
It's always about the money. I mean, that's the problem with our government, is just the constant greed.
And here's the other problem on the voucher program that I have concerns about is our faith-based schools, our Christian schools. Anytime you receive federal funding or state funding, it comes with strings. And, do you really want those strings attached to it? For me, I don't. I want to have that religious freedom in our Christian schools to teach their values based. I teach adjunct at Southwest Adventist University. And one of the things I like about that is I have the freedom and the independence to use faith-based discussion and everything that we do. But when you receive state and federal funds, then you have different requirements that you have, and you have that oversight. And so, those are some concerns too. But the real question for me is, the fiscal sanity of it. It's, why are we creating a big government program? I don't care if it's coming out of the rainy day funds; those belong to the taxpayers.
Right.
It's still a tax. It's still money government spend. But we got to get back to more of a limited government approach and the basics.
Well, and that's when we come back from the break here. I'm gonna ask you a little more questions about where is that responsibility and fiscal responsibility to come in when we're looking at our school districts and the overspending and the elaborate, the complaints of elaborate gyms and football fields and sports programs versus focusing on the education and looking at, even Godly. I think they tried to do a $380 million bond last year, and they're rewriting a new one, and so somebody's paying for it. We'll be right back. Stay
Sounds
with
good.
us.
Yeah, nowhere but Texas.
Attention all business owners and creative minds. Do you need a unique and personalized touch for your products? Look no further than Romika Laser Engraving and Custom Designs. I'm Ron Phillips, co-owner of Romika Designs. We offer custom laser engraving services for a variety of products, including promotional items and corporate or personal gifts. With state-of-the-art equipment and a team of skilled designers, we can engrave intricate designs on virtually any material. Whether it's a special message, a company logo, or a custom design, Romika Laser Engraving will help you make your mark. And the best part, our prices are affordable and our turnaround time is quick.
I couldn't be happier with the work Romika Laser Engraving did for me. The engraving on my product was precise and exactly what I wanted.
So don't wait any longer to add a personal touch to your products. Call Romika Laser Engraving and Custom Designs today at 817-400-4040 or visit our website at romikadesigns.com. We look forward to helping you make your mark.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395. Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395.
The voice of Johnson County, Joco Community Radio.
Nowhere but Texas. That's where I'll be. Get home's the answer to all my dreams. I know one thing. God calls me. Nowhere but Texas is where I'll be.
It's kind of what happens here in Texas. We go where the wind needs us. It's become almost like Chicago. I don't know where the winds come from all these years. But welcome back to the second half of the County Pulse here on Joco Community Radio. Joco Community Radio is proud to be the voice of Johnson County, Texas, and is live 24/7 on the TuneIn Radio Network. TuneInJoco.com is the place to find all the ways to listen and watch, and the station app is also available for free on Android and Apple devices. Simply search your store. Check out our lineup and more at JocoCommunityRadio.com. This episode and more brought to you by Next Level Claims, making your insurance work for you. So reach out to your Texas sales rep at 844-TEX-HAIL. That's 844-839-4245. Get them in your corner before the next storm hits because, insurance doesn't like to pay the full amount of their claims. It's just the constant war with insurance companies. And be sure to dress your arms and more at thetiffy.com. So welcome back to this episode with Mayor Scott Cain from Cleburne. And we were talking before we went to the break about the not so fun discussion of school vouchers and property taxes and the things that are weighing on. I mean, honestly, it's taxing a lot of people out of their homes. I think you said that in the first half too. And I don't think people really understand what that means. So, but it's absolutely outrageous. And you were touching on the government getting involved. Like if you do the voucher program and money then stays with the student, which I do kind of believe that it needs to, but if they're going over to a private, faith-based school, then you're letting the government infiltrate your faith. And do you want that? Because then they can dictate or start to dictate things that they want, right? Like you said, strings attached to it.
Yeah, I think it's important for our listeners to educate themselves and look at the stakes. If you want that voucher program, then that's fine. But looking at that and understanding the impact of that. Anytime the government sends you money, first of all, there's no free money. They're not,
Right.
Unless you're the federal government, you just print it up. But there's an impact on that too. It has a ripple effect on the economy. But you've got to look at the issue, and I think our state house race really it is about the voucher program and whether you're going to support the voucher or not. But we got to get past the sound bites, and we got to dig into that. But we were talking last time, and we've talked a little bit this morning about we've got to get people involved in their elections. I don't think it's just a right. I think it's a duty of every American citizen to engage at elections at every level. If you're in Burleson, your mayor, Chris Fletcher, he is elected to represent you and represent the entire community. In Cleburne, it's me right now. But that is one of the most sacred things that we have. And it's one thing to get on social media and complain about potholes or the state or things like that. But if you haven't gone to the polls and engaged and exercised your vote, we all have that duty and have that right. And we need to do that. But we got to figure out a way to make it easier for folks. Personally, I'd like to see city elections in November, one-stop shop, and make it easier. But I understand the debate. Sometimes there's a concern about down ticket races being overshadowed by presidential elections. But I think those folks that are going to go to the polls are going to be educated on that anyway. And it forces us at all levels to be working together a little more. That's got to be a good thing.
The resources are there. We've shared them on Joco Community Radio, where to go to look at every single race. And March 5th, you have your primary elections, and that's for whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. There's primary races on both. State level, there are some local for both. Typically in Johnson County, you see a lot more Republicans in the primary on the primary side. I think there's a few challengers on the Democratic side, but this is your time to vote.
It is.
And it's an open primary in Texas. So it doesn't matter. You can, if you want to decide to jump ship from one party to the other because it more aligns with what's important to the county or with how you feel about politics right now, do it. This is when you can do it.
That's a really good point. We don't have registration in Texas. I hear this from time to time. Well, I'm a registered Democrat or I'm a registered. No, you're not in Texas, because we do have open primaries. And so a lot of these local elections, like, we're seeing a lot of constable races that are very, very active this go round. The state house race, where there may not be, it may be in one primary. Like you said, it's usually on the Republican ticket. Used to be on the Democratic side. But you can go and vote on those local races, and then you're not bound to vote for that party or whatever later on. But we've got to have people that are engaging in that process and getting involved. One of the great things at the local level that I love is I don't have to have a letter next to my name. I'm nonpartisan, non-denominational politically, if you will, and
which is what it should be.
Yeah,
it's what it should be. people go, oh, well, you're an independent. It's because you won't pick a side. I don't have to pick a side because I'm not voting for people. I'm voting for the issues that are important to me, to my family, to my city, to my county, to my state. This is what affects us. It's the issues. It's not the party. And we've allowed party politics to infiltrate the local level. We were talking about this at the break. That's where elections have become so high vibrationally evil.
Yeah,
Right?
it's been
For lack of better
polarized.
words, it's just been crazy.
It's been polarized, and we've got to get back to the basics. And I will say that I am starting to see a lot of people that are sifting through that, and they're calling BS on the sound bites and saying, okay, well, it's one thing to say, I'm conservative, or I'm whatever the latest word on the moderate, or whatever the other side, but come on, and to those that are running for office, call out the PACs and the committees that are sending flyers, that are calling names, and say, look, we're not going to engage in name calling. We're going to run on issues, and we're going to talk about the issues. I mean, right now, the border issue and getting that under control is deeply, deeply important to Texans and even Americans. My wife and I were in New York last fall, and I just had to laugh. I turned on the TV, and the mayor and New York City was wringing their hands because they had 65 immigrants that had been bussed in, and they didn't know what to do. I came close to calling them and saying, 65, that's about every 5 minutes in Texas, welcome to our problem. That's important. Property taxes is vitally important. Getting government under control. Texas has there's something about being a Texan. We're wildly independent. We like the fact that we're different than the other states. We like our heritage. We like our freedom. We got to get back to focusing on that and stop the name calling.
I go back to this, and I know we're so talking about, I mean, the stuff that affects us nationally, but it's really, it trickles down to the local level. And I look at this. My husband and I were discussing this last weekend. We were listening to a program on NPR, I think it was, and again, it was a featured story on an immigrant who came over, and he's like, "Don't stick me in a hotel. That's not why I came here. I came here to work. I want to work. That's why I'm here. I want to make money. I need to take care of my family. That's why I'm here. You can just stick me in a hotel and waste money and waste my time. I'm not of use, and that's not why I came here." And I think if people sat and really talked to a lot of immigrants, and I know it's such a black and white issue for some people. But these people are really coming here. The majority of them are coming here to work. And I know people I hear, well, but the drug problem, I'm like, listen, that drug problem is going to exist. And just like it has, it's because our government's involved in it. They profit from it. And people don't want to admit that. They don't want to admit that our government profits off of the drugs coming in from China and from Mexico and everything else. But if you had all of these Mexican immigrants who are coming across the border, lined up, filled out an application, got a background check done on them from Mexico or whatever, and each one of them paid $100 to become an American citizen, and then we could get tax money from them on top of that. That's a lot of money.
Well, our immigration system is very, very broken, and it has been for a long time. And I kind of see this as a two-step process, and this is just Scott speaking, but I think you got two issues. You've got to get the border under control, and get a system and process, and you've got to fix the immigration system. And exactly what you said, we need to get those immigrants plugged into the community and work on that. Am I talking amnesty?
No.
Not necessarily, but I'm talking about, if we got people here, instead of giving a government handout, we need to give them a hand up and get them plugged in.
Yeah.
And so that they're contributing. But until we get the sieve at the border fixed, we got to get something done. But I tell you, the issue is complicated even on that. We got to get past the sound bites and the politicizing of it, and we've got to start figuring it out. Congress is, it's kind of interesting. You get both parties in Congress coming back with plans on the border, and the timing is always suspect. And I think we're all just sitting there going, can you just put all that aside and work it out? But they attach so many things to the bill that it's almost
Mhm.
setting it up for failure. And then they'll pull during election time, they'll pull that one topic out and say, well, you voted against this.
Right,
I mean, we're
right.
seeing that the state race on the voucher issue.
The voucher issue,
And
abortion, faith-based stuff. I mean, all these things that now it's down to where it's pinning, Christian against Christian and trying to divide. And it's gotten so insane because nobody's sitting back and really looking at the big picture and going, okay, what really matters here?
well, and that's what, and I'm sure that Mayor Fletcher would agree with me, and Mayor Kimball. And the great thing about working at a city level is we don't have those partisan issues, and these are neighbors and people we know. And so, at the local level, we've got to roll up our sleeves and solve real problems. And we can't just live in the ivory towers. And it's like I told Roger Williams one time. I said, the difference in politics at the federal, state, and local level is the federal level, you guys are lobbing intercontinental ballistic missiles at each other.
Right.
At the state level, you're throwing hand grenades at each other. At the local level, it's hand-to-hand combat.
Right.
It's deeply personal.
Yeah.
But
That's a really good way to describe it.
but at the end of the day, we just and here's the thing: we can sit and we can talk about where the politicians are name calling and doing all that, but until the voters go to the polls and say, you know what, enough's enough. I want you to get back to being adults and focusing on the issues. They're going to keep looking at what the polls say and how they do it. Because right now, the polls say if you use sound bites and you use name calling, that makes you look better than the other, as opposed to the issues. But
It makes you look horrible.
I think it does.
I think it makes a candidate look absolutely horrible. That's not, especially for someone who's coming in who's not an incumbent. And if I look at an incumbent who's been in a position for 30 years, and that's where I need to focus.
Yeah,
What
look at
have
the record.
what have they done
Look at the record.
or not done?
But I'm even seeing distortions of the record, in the House race. I'm seeing comments being made, and Dwayne and I've had our differences, and we've had our debates on different topics. And I'm not saying you got to go out and vote for him, but hold him accountable for his actual record. I'm hearing things where comments being made that he voted to raise property taxes when he did the exact opposite of that. That's why I think when you look at these flyers, for me, when I see these flyers and they make allegations, I look to the footnote to see if they cite a source. And then I go to that source. It's kind of like turning on the TV. You can't turn on the TV and, there's no more Walter Cronkite that's just going to report the news and allow Americans to make up their own mind.
Right.
We've got to get back to that. And we got to get back to this idea that, we're all Americans. We're all Texans, and we're all Jocos, Johnson County folks, and we got to start working from what we have in common, because we have a lot more in common than people realize. But here's why I'm optimistic. I see being an American, being a Texan, and living in Johnson County, we're a lot like siblings. We have it in our DNA. And when we go through a period like we have since 9/11, where we haven't had anybody really attack us, we start fighting like siblings in a family. But if somebody from the outside attacks us, Katie bar the door, we'll unite. And I think we're still there, but we've got to get back to those basics.
I think people need to remember that time. And I'm from the East Coast. I grew up in New Jersey. I was in the air on 9/11, actually on one of the last 6 planes to land that day. And it's a completely different perspective when you're looking from that view on the entire, picture. And but what was the most amazing thing, and what I love about growing up on the East Coast, is this melting pot that I grew up with. My classroom was filled with people from a million different nations, and everyone came together. Everyone came together to find survivors, to find this, and I lived here when it happened. But that's your home, and this is our home as a nation, and we have to come together. That's what I like seeing about Johnson County and looking at all of the leadership, all of you mayors coming together and communicating, that wasn't happening a few years ago. And and that may hurt some people's feelings to hear that, but it was not happening a few years ago, and not to your non-effort, Mayor Cain, because the effort was there, but sometimes some leadership doesn't want to play nice.
We were very fractured, and we've been competing with one another for a long time. And to Chris Fletcher's credit, he's really the one and I remember, sitting down at the Railroaders game, and him asking me, "What is this Burleson Cleburne rivalry? I just don't understand. We ought to be working together." And I said, "I agree." And with that, we've really started trying to build a coalition to work together, and we're seeing some growth with that, and we're seeing sharing of resources and sharing of ideas, and because ultimately we want to serve our community. We want to serve the county, but we want to serve our communities. We want to see our communities thrive, and not to use another soundbite, but there is one: better together. And we really are. And so looking at how we can help one another and grow our communities, that's what it's all about. Because if we don't do it, somebody's going to step in and do it, and it may not be recognizing
Right.
our community, our heritage.
Do you want to come together, or do you want to let somebody separate us and get in there and divide? And then you're not working together and carves off a piece of, Johnson County that says, no, you know what? We want to work a little more over here, and, forget it. You guys, left treated us like the redheaded stepchild.
Yeah.
Speaking of sound bites, right? But that's the truth. And I was gonna, I had something and it blanked out of me. But it's kind of the way that I've always looked at Wilshire. I don't really refer to it as Wilshire Boulevard. I refer to it as the Johnson County corridor.
Yeah.
Because it really is. It comes off of 35 here, and you can shoot from Burleson to Cleburne, and then from there you have your veins that hit out to all the other areas.
Route
And
Vista
it's a
and all the way to
corridor.
the Brazos. It is.
I'm a movement to change the name to the Johnson County corridor, because just imagine if you really started to refer to it as something like that, just like we say Joko better together. It creates a mindset that we're all here doing business together and we're all trying to survive. Even here's the radio station. Not everybody's a fan, and that's because we're talking about all the issues that are happening, and we're talking to all the candidates that are running. And you'll have people we say we're the voice of Johnson County, and we're the voice of Johnson County not because of me, but because of the collective of voices that use this platform to talk about all the issues and to bring information to the people. And without that, who's doing it? Who are you getting your information? Leave it to Facebook?
When I first was elected mayor, George Marty was long-term mayor. In fact, he was the longest tenured mayor. And in May, I'll actually tie him with the longest tenured mayor in Cleburne's history. But he told me, Mr. Marty said, "Now, Scott," he said, "you've got to listen to everybody, and then you got to try to make the best call you can for the good of the community. But you need to listen to everybody." And he said, "You're going to break some eggs in the kitchen, and you're going to upset some folks. But if you listen to everybody and then you try to do what you think is best, you'll come out all right, and you'll represent the community well." And I've had that. I've had people that said, "Well, you're a different political persuasion than I am." I was like, that doesn't have anything to do with it. My job is to represent you.
Right.
And we may agree to disagree, but it starts with listening. And I think that's the problem that we're seeing in the entire nation is we've gotten so loud and screaming our position that we don't take the time to listen to one another.
Well, the majority of people in the United States, and we'll just start there. The majority of us are in the middle, but it's the smaller groups to, for lack of better terms, the far left or the far right. It's a smaller group. And when you're a smaller group, just like you're the little kid that wants attention from mom and dad, you're going to be the loudest. And then, so if you allow those voices to overtake the rest of the people, and you lose the fact that you have so much commonality and for what we want, which is it's all for the greater good of everybody.
Well, and I think that's what Mayor Fletcher had in mind, and Judge Bedeker's doing an amazing job of uniting the county.
Speaking of Judge Bedeker,
Yeah.
because I didn't want to forget about this, because we
Yeah.
talked about this before the show started. Commissioner's Court, Johnson County Commissioner's Court, is happening this Friday at 9 a.m. You can be there in person, or you can watch it live on the county website. We'll post a link to it on Friday morning just before it starts on Joco Community Radio's Facebook page and YouTube, so you can watch it. This is one I think you really want to pay attention to, because I've been made aware that there's been a big water contamination investigation going on. The state's involved. I believe it's gone beyond the state now. The Texas Rangers are involved. And this is a big deal. And it's apparently some serious water contamination across Johnson County. And that's caused a lot of cancer, as a matter of fact. So I don't want to go into any more of the details because I can't give you the details. But I'm giving you the information. If you want to know what's going on, you have to get involved. You have to watch. You've got to listen. And so go to the source. And this is 9 a.m. Central Time on Friday, County Commissioner's Court for Johnson County, and Chris is doing a great job. So
yeah, that's going to be a really key thing to watch, because water is vital. I mean, you can't live without it. And we hadn't had a chance to get into water yet, but our water sources in Johnson County are critical. If we're going to be able to continue to grow, we've got to have water. And we're seeing across the state of Texas, water is becoming more of a hot topic in both law and the courts, as well as how we operate. In Johnson County, we have to, there's two issues that a lot of people have to think about. You've got to have the ability to create potable water. You got to have a source to get the water into the county. Then you got to have infrastructure on how you get it out to the houses. And those are two big topics. And a lot of times folks don't realize that this is a topic that gets worked on at the city level and the county level, and Johnson County Special Utility District over a period of time. In Cleburne, we're looking at our water sources and what our needs are, forecasting 25, 50 years out. And we're always building on that, on how we're going to deliver that water. It's really important, but we also have to protect our water sources. A few years ago, we partnered with the county, and we had a lawsuit, and we fought at the state level against Harrington that was dumping waste and land farming into the headwater of Lake Pat, which is a major water source. And we got to do that. So I think there's some issues that are coming up on Commissioner's Court that's vitally important to the county. And you're going to see a lot anytime you get TCQ at the state level, the federal government or the Texas Rangers involved, it's going to be serious. And so it's something that I'm going to definitely be watching. I do a lot of things with water within the county and the state. And I'm going to be watching that, because we've got to do that. As we see growth, the water wells that we've lived on in Johnson County are starting to play out. So we're going to have more partnerships and working together to develop that water and to get it out there. And, I've talked a lot with Judge Bedeker and others about how we've got to have that partnership.
Tarrant County is our main source, right?
Well, Tarrant County is for Burleson, but you have the city of Cleburne and Johnson County Special Utility District pulling out of the Brazos River Basin. I think you're going to see in the county, you're going to see something similar to Tarrant Regional for the county. But you got to have a long-term plan. So we could talk for hours on that.
Well, this is where you want to stay. You want to stay in tune with the County Pulse each week, Tuesdays at 11 a.m., because these are the topics that each of you mayors are going to be bringing to the table. And I don't know, I understand a county commissioner here and there can't have more than so many at the table at the same time, but everybody's going to get involved in this conversation on what's going on. And I appreciate you guys so much working together and all the things that you're doing to bring this information. And I don't know who's going to be back with Mayor Chris Fletcher next week. I mean, it could be you. I don't know. I don't know what you guys have planned.
He might come back and say, Cain, you got it all ruined for me. I'm going to have to clean it all up. But I tell you, one of the things that I've really enjoyed is the friendship that I've developed in working on these issues. He's always so positive about building teamwork, and he's got such a servant's heart. And quite frankly, we've talked a lot about politics today. We need more Chris Fletchers that come because they want to serve their
Yeah, but
communities.
this is you too, though. I mean, this is you too. I mean, there's not a lot of bigger cities that you guys or bigger counties that you can go to where the mayors will come and sit at the table and have these conversations on a regular basis. And that speaks volumes about you and Chris and Mayor Kimball. And it's the most important part to hear from the leadership. So thank you so much.
Well, if we stick together, we're better together. And it's always a great day in Johnson County when we work together.
That's right. All right. Have an amazing day, guys. We'll see you back here. Actually, 1:00, we got another show coming up. How to Be a Human with Tatiana Miller. Have a great week.
From Burleson to Venus and Grandview to Godley, this is the voice of Johnson County, Joco Community Radio.
Hey, travelers, do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right, call, because the best prices are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at ridiculously low prices. Our prices are too low to publish online. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next flight. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find ridiculously low prices for you. Call SmartFares today and get the best price on your next flight. Guaranteed. Also, save up to 50% off business and first class tickets.
855-325-1820. 855-325-1820. That's 855-325-1820.
Have you ever met a single person in your life that enjoys paying taxes? No, no one does. If you can't sleep at night because you have a huge problem with the IRS, I've got some free advice for you.